Welcome, Julia. So today we are with Julia Mellor,
Mhm.
founder of Sool Company. Sool Company is a business dedicated to preserve and promote traditional Korean spirits on the global stage through education, training, tasting, and consulting. And is the current leader for promoting and content production in English language. So welcome, Julia. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
A pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. It's always nice to talk about Sool in the international world with
Exactly.
like-minded people. So very happy to be
Yeah,
here.
I was looking forward to for this interview, so thank you so much. So let's start yeah, how did your journey in Korea start, your life, and why did you move there?
Seems like an age ago now. It was a long time ago, but I actually moved to Korea after graduating university. And I'm actually a politics and journalism major, nothing to do with booze or science or anything like that. But wanted a new challenge and a new experience. And Korea sounded amazing. I'd heard a lot about it and went there straight away after university. Taught English and only planned to be there for a year, maybe 2 years, and to move on. But as so many stories as you hear in Korea, fell in love with it, just loved living there and was looking for new opportunities. And about 3 or 4 years into my stint there, I then discovered the world of Korean alcohol beyond what I had already been introduced to. Everybody that goes to Korea has tried soju or tried makgeolli. It's, and think, oh, it's just one brand, or, I had a great time, but had a bad hangover, that kind of experience. But I was introduced to quality Korean alcohol through a blind tasting and thought it was amazing and Googled it for information in English and found nothing. There was just no information at all. And this was I moved to Korea 17 years ago. So this was about, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago. So I thought, well, it's so disappointing there's no information in English. Maybe this is an opportunity. And one thing led to another. And then I studied Korean alcohol, studied fermentation, and started as a community. And then built on that and turned it into a business. And then fast forward 20 years, here I am.
No, that's incredible. So what did you find interesting about Korean food in particular?
A couple of things. I mean, first of all, at that time, because nobody knew about Sool or anything like that, how often do you discover a new category of alcohol? You have this sort of arrogance that we know all the alcohols in the world and, what's available commercially. So first of all, I just thought it was new and exciting, but it wasn't until I learned about the brewing process and the complexities of how you can actually make 4 or 5 drinks out of the same process of mixing rice, water, and the fermentation starter nuruk, and how easily that can be done at home. It has such a rich homebrewing culture, and there's a lot of storytelling surrounding its history and evolution, and also how it has stayed so unknown relatively on a global scale. Just fascinated me. And the more I pulled at that string, the more I was like, wow, these are amazing stories. How is it that nobody knows about these stories? And that's where the passion came from, I guess, and still is, because I'm still learning. Anyone in any industry knows that there's no end to the learning. So yeah, that's sort of what hooked me in and won't let me go.
Yeah, I can totally understand and relate. For me, it's the same as with Korean food as well. So researching, studying, it's never ending, right?
Never ending, never ending. That's when you get comfortable and you think, okay, I got this. Something new will be thrown up. And that's what keeps it challenging. I mean, it's hard to keep a passion for something so long when it becomes your business and your life and, your day to day. But that's what keeps you going, because there is so much to learn and there is so much dynamism and things are changing all the time. So yeah, you can't get bored, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. And yeah, from being like a foreigner entrepreneur in Korea, what are the challenges that you have encountered?
Oh, a lot. A lot. It is not easy in any sense to own a business or to start a business, even in your own language, your own culture, anything. And then doing that in a foreign language, in a foreign culture, it definitely throws up challenges. I think it's just simple things, day-to-day things about business registration and taxes and how to run the business, and having that sort of support was always very challenging. But Korea is a country full of opportunities, and there's always a way to find new parts of your business and trying new things. So it's been very, very challenging, but you know, I wouldn't have it any other way, I guess. And it wasn't really an option at that point, to just, if you want to keep going, just push through all those challenges, and yeah, get to where you're going.
So you told me that you started as a community project related
Yes.
to that. So can you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, and I want to keep this name alive because it's so important to me. But our original community was called Makgeolli Mamas and Papas Korea, which is MMPK for short. And it was started by myself and a good friend of mine, actually as an exploratory community. Of course, when I started, I didn't know anything really about makgeolli. I just wanted to learn about it and to explore that with other people. So we started this community where once every 3 weeks, we would choose a makgeolli bar in Seoul and just post about it online and say, whoever wants to come join us, send us an email, give us $10 and we'll pull that money into the kitty. And we would order everything on the menu. And we prepared rating sheets where people could write down their opinions and decide what they like. And it was sort of this communal exploring meeting of what makgeollis were out there, what food, what bars there were. And at the end of the evening, I would collect those sheets and then write reviews on our website and say to other people that wanted to go and explore makgeolli, go to this bar, try this makgeolli, that kind of thing. But pretty quickly, after sort of 6 months, almost a year, it wasn't that I was learning with everybody anymore. It very much felt like I was leading it and telling people about it because I had learned so much. And that's where it just became sort of, the community was less about a communal exploratory and more I was being able to communicate what I was learning. And that's my favorite part of the job.
And the education part for your business, like how did you find programs to learn about spirits?
For education, I mean, I was very lucky in that I was mentored actually with an academy that, you know, gave me experiences in English to learn about Korean alcohol, and so that I could then also teach in English to other people that wanted to learn how to brew and all this kind of stuff. But when it came down to other more formal learnings, I knew pretty quickly that the information in English is good, but it's not the full picture. If you want to learn something about a culture in you know, in different ways, you really have to learn it in that language. So I just studied in the Korean programs, which there are many schools and things like that for Korean alcohol brewing and all that sort of thing. And that was a huge chunk of my first 5 years of working in Seoul. Yes, I was providing experiences in this kind of thing, but also studying and to boost my own knowledge in Korean language so that I could, you know, do it better in the future.
No, that's amazing. Must be hard at the beginning for sure, you know.
Oh,
Especially in language, right?
do you know, even though it was hard, it's so sunny right now, just hard to see you. But anyway, yeah, it was really hard in the beginning, but I think of those times recently. I was reflecting on these times, and they were some of the most joyful and enjoyable times because it was the peak of exploration. Yeah, sure, I was working full time and studying full time and preparing for a visa. The number one thing you've got to think about in Korea is your visa plan if you're not Korean. But I still remember it fondly as being something that I could never replicate because it was these relationships that we were forming and these experiences that I couldn't have again even now. So yeah, it was tough, but I don't think I really felt like it was tough. I think it's harder now.
Yeah, it's a business story, right?
Yeah, it's never not hard, but yeah, I really I cherish those memories because yeah, I look fondly on that. Was before makgeolli was even popular as well. We have a whole industry now that's really growing and exploding. And at that time, it was such a small knit community of people that were passionate about Korean alcohol. And yeah, so although it was hard, I remember it very fondly.
Yeah, that was my other question. Like, how did the industry evolved during your life in Korea, in Korea and abroad? I'm sure that's a lot of changes, right?
So different. It is so different. I've never in my life been able to visibly witness how quickly something has just completely changed. And it's mostly because in some way it was a timing thing. Korean alcohol was growing when I started sort of 13, 14 years ago. It was a slow burn. There was more people doing, you know, craft brewing and trying to bring some authenticity and retaining those traditions that were almost lost. But really what was the turning point was right before COVID, I think it was 2018 or 19, I can't quite remember, but the Korean alcohol law changed. So it allowed what's called cheonteongju, or Korean traditional alcohol, to be sold online. And that's a game changer, because in Korea, you can't order wine or whiskey or beer or anything like that online, but you can order makgeolli or soju or these other Korean alcohols. So in a perfect storm of timing, COVID happened pretty quickly after that, and it became something to encourage people to do at home. Drink at home, drink alone, social distancing, all that sort of stuff, and then discover all these new brands and these companies that were on the up and coming. So in the last 5 years, it has completely exploded. I barely recognize it these days. There's so many young breweries, there's innovation, there's different experimentation with flavors and things like that, and packaging and marketing and storytelling and all this stuff, that it's unrecognizable from 5 years ago, which is the Korean way. Things move and change really
Very fast, very fast.
quickly. So that's why it's also very exciting to work in that industry today.
Yeah, tell me about like the products that you offer from Sool Company, like which kind of, please.
So the services that we do in Korea, we are a small brewery in Seoul. So we, brew our own line of makgeolli, usually for restaurants and sort of private label and whatnot. But we're a teaching brewery. We also show people how it works, what equipment works and things like that. But mostly our services are rooted in tourism and education. That's the passion. That's what we've been all about this whole time. So for tourists coming into Korea, they can learn how to brew a one-day class very simply, sort of a simple recipe, and have a tasting of a huge curation of different craft makgeollis and sojus that are on the market right now. And also we do a lot of tasting classes that are very focused in on the different categories. Because as a tourist, sometimes you come into Korea and yeah, sure, you might see makgeolli in the convenience store or maybe at a restaurant, but there's not a lot of access unless you know where you're going or know what to look for. And it's a massive discovery of different kinds of alcohol. So we offer those tasting classes in our space in Haewha, which is close to Insadong. And then we also do tasting tours. So people can eat and drink. One of the best things about Korea is, of course, as you know, food is central to alcohol as well. So we go and do tasting tours and pairings and things like that from a tourism side of things. But from a sort of a more globalization point of view, the Sool Company also is an agency for export. We help breweries access markets internationally because there's things like language barrier. There's really difficult issues when it comes to export. So we act as an agency in between for territories like Singapore, mostly in Southeast Asia. And then also me personally, I now live in the Netherlands because 17 years is a long time in Korea. And I also realized that now's the opportunity to bring that information and bring what we do in Korea to Europe and to the international market. Not everybody can come to Korea and experience a class, experience Sool. So we wanted to sort of bring that closer to an international audience. And primarily what I do as well is consulting. So I help people open breweries internationally. Right now, where the sun is shining in my eyes, rarely because I'm in London.
Yeah, that's unusual, right?
Exactly. We're working on a soju project to be the first soju produced in London. And we just launched the first makgeolli brewery last year. So
it's in UK, in London?
In the UK, yes.
Oh, congratulations.
So it's a makgeolli called komi makgeolli, which is the only freshly unpasteurized makgeolli available in the UK, in London at the moment. And that's my real passion. I want to support people and businesses opening breweries internationally. Because as you might know, fresh makgeolli specifically is virtually unexportable to long distances because it has to be cold chain, it's unpasteurized, it has a lot of challenges. So I want to encourage people to brew it locally and really bring that authenticity of what the drink is to a local market. So it's easier for me to do that if I'm based in Europe and a little bit over on this side of the world. So yeah, that's a brief snapshot of all the things that I think we do. I'm sure there's other things.
Well, so many things. And I mean, how do you like European, like Western approach Korean spirits? Do they have like the same enthusiasm as they do for Korean food, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think the This is something that is also really close to my heart, is that and maybe I offer a different perspective to perhaps sort of a Korean company trying to market makgeolli or anything so internationally, is that you really have to understand your target. Even for me, in my own experience here in Europe, in the Netherlands, of course, our target is all of the EU and the UK. Every single country within the EU is different in terms of what they enjoy and what they like and how they drink, and also what experience they already have with alcohol. Case in point, I was in Warsaw in Poland just last week doing an event with the Korean Cultural Center. And it was so fascinating because there's so much experience in Polish vodka, which is not too dissimilar from soju in a way, that it was almost like, oh, okay, interesting, but what else have you got? I want something new. I want something a bit different. And so makgeolli, takju actually was really popular in Poland, which is not what I expected at all. And yet the soju was like, okay, I can respect and I understand it, but it's a little too similar to Polish vodka. And that's so important. You can't just expect people to like it because it's Korean or because, you know, it tastes good. You have to consider how people drink. What food do they have with it, if at all? And what's their own culture of alcohol? Do they drink more spirits? Take it, for example, Belgium. We did some events last year in Belgium. Belgium has such a long, rich history in lambic beers and wild yeast and cultivation and sour alcohols. So they loved makgeolli, absolutely loved it. And yet distilled probably, okay, interesting, but they wanted more of that wild, sour, kind of fresh style. So from a Western point of view, America, Australia, Europe, UK, it's not the same. You really have to understand your market and move with that market. And my favorite saying about Sool is, if you think you don't like it, you just haven't met the right Sool yet. There's so much diversity, and you just got to find the right one to introduce to your market, and it'll happen.
Yeah, that's all comes with the, you know, your expertise and knowing the market and the culture as well.
Yes.
So, for example, you told me, you mentioned that you were in Italy last year, right?
Yes, in Milan.
In Milan. So, how were the reaction from people?
It was wonderful. First of all, I love Italy, and I loved working in Milan. But it was very, like, surprisingly open-minded. That people wanted to try new things, but more than perhaps the tasting was a little bit more difficult to bring people in because it might have been unusual or something they weren't aware of. But the brewing classes that we had, people want to get their hands on. They want to try something. And I think this is something generally in Europe I've experienced. Workshop culture, or wanting to learn a new skill or try something different, is really popular. And people are open-minded to trying something related to cooking or related to fermentation. I think our challenges in Milan were about advertising. When we advertised, a Sool tasting, it wasn't quite easy to bring people to come in. But when we pivoted and offered it as aperitivo, that changed the game. There were people that were saying, oh, that's casual, I can try that. There's no risk. I love aperitivo, it's a cocktail. And they could experience Korean alcohol through aperitivo. So that, again, this goes back to, you might think you know what the market wants or how to advertise, but it's not the same. We've worked in France, we've worked in many places, and sometimes it explodes, and other times it's pulling blood from a stone to try and get people to sign up. And it's about understanding your local culture and how it can fit in. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed, and would go back to Italy anytime.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I could definitely. We should arrange something together at some point.
For sure.
Yeah, I can see your passion, enthusiasm. So that's really great to see. So yeah, I wanted to ask you about your team. I mean, where are the people who work with you these days?
Yep. So my team is mostly based in Korea. We're a small team of partners. And my partner, Kim Bona, she is Korean, and she runs the Sool Company on the ground in Korea. She's a force to be reckoned with, and she's an amazing partner. And she also does come over here to Europe. She's got a lot of experience here, and sometimes she'll come over, you know, and we'll do an event here and there. And then I also go to Korea a couple of times a year usually, and just sort of check in and do some stuff there. So with me heading up Europe and her heading up Korea, we're kind of like a good symbiotic power couple, I guess you could say, in a way. And then, of course, our partner, Valentin, who's French. And he's our business manager, and he really guides us. I mean, myself and Borna, we're very expert in our field and we love our jobs, but we also sort of need that guidance when it comes to business management and keeping the business on track. So it's a great core team of weaknesses, supplementing strengths. And then, of course, we have our staff, which we train to do classes and tastings for the tourism services and the brewing services. And we're always looking for more people to join the team and become guides and teachers and be a part of the Sool experience. But yeah, that's our core team at the moment.
That sounds great. So yeah, I come across a lot of like non-Korean entrepreneurs who actually bring forward Korean culture in different fields.
Yep.
So how like Korean institutions or Korean people react to foreign entrepreneur bringing Korean culture abroad?
A very good question. And it varies. For me, it has varied over my my career. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and Korea's approach to foreigners in general has changed a lot in those last 15, 20 years. For me in Korea, it's always been normal. Because it was so small of an industry when I started. The only people I really care about is other people in the makgeolli industry or the Sool industry in general. And I have, a great respect and healthy relationships within Korea for sure. It's not always easy as a foreigner to do business, I'll say, for sure. It's a little bit easier to have a Korean partner that can sort of speed up the process in some ways. But certainly I've always had great relationships and great experiences within the Korean community. It's probably more traveling or doing things internationally that it's usually quite surprising if I'm doing a class or a session and, it's, wow, that sun is really strong now. Oh, look at that. London, that's very surprising. It's usually not.
It's cloudy in Napoli, huh? So interesting, right?
Here.
South of Italy is cloudy.
I had to close my eyes, I couldn't see. I'll get my glasses out. Yeah, so internationally, it's usually very surprising that people don't, that they're just surprised that it's not a Korean person giving a class or something like that. But it's pretty quick after sort of 5 or 10 minutes of explaining my background, my history, and then the stuff I know. Then it doesn't become an issue much at all. But it's more just an interesting thing. Like, it's surprising, but yeah, I actually don't really think about it so much anymore. I've been doing it for so long. But certainly in Europe, it has crossed my mind. Or maybe people don't sign up because they see that I'm not Korean. Maybe they prejudge me or they've got some opinions on it. But I can't let that bother me or affect me too much because, it's, you can't please everybody, or you can't prove yourself to everybody, I guess is the point.
Yeah, I understand. And talking about like your favorite Sool or like makgeolli flavors that you have tasted over the years, can you tell me some of your favorites?
I get this question literally every time I do an interview. Like, what's your favorite makgeolli? And I always say it's like choosing your children. Like, who's your favorite kid or who's your favorite this and that. I have equal opportunity for all of them. I think they're all great. But I think also the great thing about Sool is that you like and enjoy different Sools at different times when you're drinking it. So for me, I'm more sour based. I don't like sweet things. I'm not a huge sweet tooth. So I actually really like a nice sour, dry makgeolli that has a lot of complexity, that's fizzy and fresh and quite refreshing. And there's a couple of those on the market in Korea, but it's actually harder to make that style than it is to make something sweet because of the process. But I brew myself, and that's usually what I brew for my own taste. I know I'm a niche taste, and that's fine. But also, I think one of the unsung heroes of Korean Sool is cheongju or yakju. And this is the clarified alcohol that comes after you brew. You've mixed your makgeolli bottle because you have to mix it. The sediment sinks to the bottom, and then a golden clear alcohol comes to the top. And this category is called cheongju or yakju. And it's more refined. It's more like wine in a lot of ways. And it's very complex, and it's a bit niche. Not many people drink cheongju for fun anymore. It's coming back, but it's still probably way behind makgeolli and soju on a wide scale commercial basis. But I love it. And I think that there's more versatility. It can be paired with food. There's so much complexity to it. So as a category, I'm constantly beating on the drum of, you know, try Tongju. You might be surprised what you can enjoy out of it. But and of course I love soju too, but spirit strength soju. I'm a stronger alcohol person because, you know, when you've been in alcohol for a long time, you tend to develop an appreciation for sort of complexer flavors and stronger alcohols. Spirit strength soju, which is the 40-50% that are aged well, brewed from high quality ingredients, well crafted, that I'm super passionate about at the moment.
Yeah, that brings me to the other question related to food pairings. I mean, apart from the, you know, the classic makgeolli, soju pairings with food, anything you have experienced that goes well with those spirits?
Yes, for sure. I mean, the first thing I want to say to everybody, don't put yourself in a box. Just try it. You'd be surprised at how many things can actually go really, really well. So soju, specifically soju, is something that spirit strength soju. Of course, it's interesting in cocktails. It's interesting in different kinds of other spirit applications. But it's also really nice to pair with things that are meaty and savory and oily. And that's one of the reasons table strength soju with samgyeopsal, say, for example, you know, a nice oily fried pork belly. The soju cuts it nice and clean. It just pairs really nicely. So experimenting in that way is quite fun. Takjus and makgeollis, other cuisines that mimic Korean cuisine, spiciness, actually Indian. It goes really well with Indian food, Indian cuisine, and Mexican cuisine as well. And cheeses, like fermented cheeses, like really nice. Cheongju, for example, goes really nicely with some fermented cheeses. And I think I've mentioned this in an interview before, but this is stuck in my mind as one of those revelatory experiences. What? How did this happen? It's a saltine cracker with cream cheese on top and ojingo tteokgal, which is basically like, you know, it's a, how would you explain it? It's a squid fermented
squid with, yeah, spicy
sauce.
Spicy sauce, yeah.
It's very concentrated in flavor. It's supposed to be just sort of an enhancer. It's not something you just eat a big ton of. Little bit of ojingo tteokgal on there, and then drizzled with chamgirum, sesame oil. That with a nice, crisp, clean cheongju, game over. Game over. It is such an amazing pairing. It's so specific and niche. But you know, you wouldn't think to put ojingo tteokgal on cream cheese on a saltine. And that's don't put yourself in a box. There's so many opportunities. And Sool is designed to do that. It's supposed to be able to be paired with different cuisines. It should be good on its own, but it should be versatile and be able to be applied in many cuisine situations.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You're right. Don't put yourself in a box.
No.
And try new things, right? Combination.
And you know, the reason that sort of stuck with me, I listened to a podcast years ago now about sake. And they talked about, they used the term that sake was in what they called the sushi grotto. That internationally, sake hasn't been able to tap its maximum potential because it feels like it always has to go with sushi or with Japanese cuisine. And it's sort of it is put in a box, and it's Japanese, so it goes to Japanese cuisine. We have a real great pure opportunity here to not allow Sool to be put in that box. That yes, it goes amazingly with Korean food, and we should explore that. But also, it can go with anything if you just give it half a chance, and to look at it as an alcohol in itself. We pair wine with just about anything these days, so it doesn't need to be
exactly
paired with just one cuisine. So I hope that people can, think outside the box.
And do you have like some makgeolli or drinking places to recommend in Seoul or in Korea in general? Some of your favorite spots?
I got a long list.
Yeah.
And they're always changing because there's always some really fun things to come up with. And that's why we do a lot of tasting tours, because you know, it's hard to hit all these spots all at once. I'd say one of my favorites, this is a little bit more niche, but it's something that sticks out in my mind a lot. There's for different experiences. When you drink makgeolli or drink Sool, either it's a real rough and ready sort of tavern, like cozy and loud and, you know, that kind of experience, or it's chef driven, it's a bit trendy, it's quite modern and has some interesting tastes. There's a place called Ju 52 near Wangchimni Station. It's a place that I make sure I go to every time I'm at home. Like I'm back in Korea, I just don't let it go because it's so good. The cuisine is so rooted in Korean ingredients and styles, but it has its own twist to it. And it's got an amazing Sool selection. It's actually just been Michelin Bib Gourmand awarded recently. So good. But then for your rough and ready kind of fun style, there's a place called Uri Yeser near Dongdaemun. And they are like us. They're a brewery that brews in-house, but they also are a tap room. And they serve it on draft. So they have a tap, space where you can drink makgeolli on draft. And they're super interactive with their customers. Like they try and get to know what your style is. It's very fun. And yeah, it's a great place to go. And it's very seasonal. Their styles change all the time. So you're not going to get bored. Just makes you want to come back more often. But there's so many places, but those two I'd say were a nice contrast between the two styles of drinking.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, definitely recommend our maybe travels to Korea to experience these kind of places, and maybe also attend a class at Sool Company. Doing for a tour with you guys would be, I think, a great. So you are in Europe now. So what's your plan?
So next year, we're focusing on our import portfolio. So I was pretty naive when I moved to the Netherlands. I'm not going to lie. I lived in Korea for so long that I got used to how Korea does things, which is bali. It's very quick. And if you want to do something, you can make it happen, no matter what it's like. And my intention was actually to open a makgeolli brewery in the Netherlands, and it still is. But I had a bit of a cold water on my face shock moment of it's going to take a lot more. It's very slow in Europe. We have to be strategic about construction and all those different things. And we thought, you know what, maybe let's hold off a little bit and grow the market a bit stronger. Because yes, it is, I think, up and coming, but perhaps not quite as ready as we had anticipated. And we've got to do a lot more education, a lot more experiences, and get the buzz going a bit stronger in Europe, just in general. So this year we're focusing on our import portfolio. So we are exporting or importing, I should say, a portfolio of quality Korean spirits, not makgeolli, because we don't want to sell things that are pasteurized. It's just not our intention. So we've got table strength sojus and spirit strength sojus and liqueurs to then piggyback off that. Because I will say my experience in Europe too, soju is a little bit more aware than makgeolli. A lot of people have never heard of makgeolli a day in their life, but soju they might have heard of. They might have heard of green bottle soju or cocktail style flavored sojus, which is the order of the day in Europe. Everybody wants to have peach soju or strawberry soju and these kinds of things. That's not drunk in Korea. That's not a Korean product at all. So we are still understanding the market a bit better, and also how we can steer it to how we want to educate on the traditional style. Our focus has always been traditional. And yeah, so we're importing our portfolio and then working on more cultural events and education and brewing classes, and yeah, you name it, we'll do it in Europe. Basically.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's great that you built from other passion a business that is like also promoting culture as well, not only like selling products. That is something that I can really appreciate, because we do the same activities to promote something that we are really passionate about. And so yeah, it was great meeting you, and
Sure.
Thanks a lot. I hope we can arrange something in Italy in the coming months. That would be awesome.
I would love that. I really would. I would love, I haven't worked with chefs yet. I haven't worked with people in the food world yet.
Yeah, that's something to
really
explore for sure. So yeah, I will thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. And good luck for your entrepreneurial journey in Europe as well.
Thank you. I'll go back into the sunny world of London, which is one-time only experience. But yes, it was a pleasure to meet you, and I do hope, next year we can do more things in Italy.
Let's do it. Hope so too.
Yes, we'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.